So thank you for choosing to use the MarkBirds database. Before you can start using it and start adding your first bird, a few steps need to be performed, which I will show in this video. I will assume here that you've successfully installed the database to your system somewhere, and that you have the folder open that contains all the files, or that you've created a shortcut to access the database. So let's open it. I will do that by clicking this file, which should look the same on Windows as on macOS. And the database detects that no birds exist yet, and it will guide us through the setup. Now, I've tried to keep the number of steps to a minimum, but still there are a few tasks that need to be taken care of to make good use of the database. So let's begin. The first step is setting the size of the message window, because every now and again a window will appear containing a message, and it is important that this window is big enough for you to see the full text. So click on Resize Me, and make the window big enough for all the text to appear, and then simply click on OK. Now that we have done that, the next steps appear. Because we are starting with an empty database, we choose the option I am new. I want to start with an empty database, and we click Continue. And now we need to follow 5 steps. And the first one is to add yourself as an observer. So click on Add, and this shows the layout for adding observers and ringers. And you simply need to add your first name and your last name, and let me do that for myself, as well as the nationality. Make sure that you are at least in the system as an observer. If you want, you can deselect ringer. At this stage you can also fill out all the other fields, but for now that's not really necessary. You can always return to this form later on. So for now, click on Save and Close, and click Continue for the next step, which is adding the bird species. Again, click on Add. An empty list will appear. Click on Add again, and add at least one bird species that you track regularly. So as an example, I will enter a herring gull, enter the scientific name. Urine code you can leave for now. Adult age you can set to the correct age, and for herring gull it's older than 4 calendar years. For the visual display in which I show the leg rings, it's important to set the body color. So click on the button and choose the correct color. Here white is already set, and do the same for leg color. Let's choose a pinky color here, maybe a little bit darker. Yes, I like this one. If you want, you can also add an image, just for reference. And if you're done, click on Save and Close. Click on Continue to go to the third step. Here we need to add a ringing station. Again, it's the same principle. Click on Add. Enter the ringing station that you use frequently. For me, that's the ringing station named Arnhem in the Netherlands. Code NLA, it's really important. Again, you can fill out all the fields now or later on. And when you're done, click on Save and Close. Then we go to step number 4, setting the preferences. We open up the preference window. Here we need to go through a few tabs. First of all, we need to set ourselves as the default user. Click on this list and you can see yourself appear. Select it. Set the default ringing station that you've added, and set your default country. All the countries of the world are already in there, so simply choose the country of your residence from this list. Next step is features. You can set the auto set last received date. This means that whenever you modify a live history, the modified date is automatically set. This can be handy to see when the last time was you've updated a live history. If you are into goals and tracking primary feathers, then you can set this option. Notations is an important one. When adding a bird with rings, a notation method is automatically generated based on the rules that you set here. Personally, for metal rings, I use this notation code. But for instance, if you want to make use of square brackets, you can change that. And you can see the examples change with it. Let me change it back for my personal preference. Same goes for colorings. I prefer to use a hyphen, but if you want to use square brackets, you can also select that. Or if you typically follow birds that use a short notation code, you can also set that. Message windows we've already done. And system settings are mainly for Windows. You could see that when a layout is opened, it is maximized. And depending on your preferences, you might want to select or deselect this option. That's just a matter of trying it out. Your changes are automatically saved, so all we need to do is click on Close. Then we are at the last step, and that's adding your first bird. So simply click on Add. And now we see the screen where we can choose the form to add a bird with. Now, for the sake of this video, I will keep it simple and add a bird with just a single ring. So from the list, I can choose the bird that I've added previously. I can enter a fictitious code. The ringing station is in there that I've added. I can select a ringing position, leave all the other settings as they are, and click on Add. And that will add the first bird to the system for me. And from here you can add observations, etc. and more birds. What I would advise you to do is go to the Manage NBDB menu and perhaps add more bird species, add locations that you use often, add more ringing stations, and add observers and ringers that you are in contact with often. And that will help you to quickly add that information without having to re-enter that every time. So good luck and have fun.